how rare is it for a game to impress you twice like this?
I mean, so the last time we spoke, I lied. I'd put in like 8 hours, I think, into Elden Ring.
Yeah, you kind of had just started scratching the surface by what I remember. Like, you're like, cool, I've explored these things. I've got a few skibbity pap seeds. I do love that everyone has their own name for those fucking things. It's great.
Scooby-Doo.
Scooby-Doo snacks.
Scooby-Doo snacks is what John Michael and I call them.
Aren't Scooby-Doo snacks like a drug, like an actual drug?
Probably.
Yeah, probably. I mean,
so I'd played 8 hours when we last spoke about it, and I'd obviously, like you said, scratched the surface, got a good feel of the DLC, and I was really enjoying it. And let me tell you, after 45, 50 hours later, having finished the DLC, it is really, really good. So much so that I have been playing it again with my second character, who you're seeing on screen now. It's my good guy, shirtless Gandalf, just doing his thing.
Shirtless Gandalf.
It's just interesting because, I mean, I've touched on this, but Elden Ring itself was very big, obviously. I mean, if you want to see everything and do everything in Elden Ring, you're looking at no less than like 100 hours. Like 100, 150 hours, depending on how detailed you want to explore the lands between. But they've taken that whole feel of, entering new areas and having these aha moments and then condensed it into something a lot shorter. Look, I say that, I mean, 50 hours is not, like a short expansion.
50 hours is not nothing to sneeze at.
If you were to mainline it, you could probably finish it in like 20, 30 hours, which is still a very long game, don't get me wrong. But you're getting all the highs of Elden Ring in like a much shorter space of time. There's just such a wide diversity of biomes, of good bosses, of new enemies, and it just, like, I had such a blast exploring it. And I think one thing that's the DLC also continues to do, which surprised me, is that in the base game, we all know, if you've played it, there's that moment where you first go down into I think it's Fiora's Well. You go down one of those long lifts and you're like, oh my God, there's a whole other area underneath the main map. And it's just this mind-blowing moment. This DLC doesn't have that, like, oh my God, there's an underworld map. But there's a huge sense of verticality where everything on this map is so laid. I mean, they describe it, I think on the box, it's like, it's the size of Limgrave. And you think Limgrave's pretty big, but it's not huge, okay? And it is, you look at the map like, okay, that's pretty big, whatever. But then what you don't expect is that there are things under the map. There are huge cliffs as well. It's just very multi-layered, and it's that classic thing of everything you see in Elden Ring, you can go there somehow. Like, you'll stand on a cliff and look down and go, oh my God, there's this place miles down there. I'm pretty sure I'll get there. And you do. Like, much later in the game, through some obscure method, there you are right on the bottom of the map, looking up at the cliff you looked down from earlier. And it's filled with
such a satisfying feeling when you can do that in a game, I think.
The way this map connects and just the way they've built it, it's, again, like, it's a masterclass of game design. Like, truly, From Software, I don't know, it's just unreal how they pull this off. And I mean, you could even go back to how when Elden Ring came out, people were like, oh, but it's going to lose that charm of interconnectedness, because it's open world. And it's like, no, they nail it. It's not quite the same as you open a door, you're like, oh, I'm back at this area. But it is a thing of, I'm standing on a cliff looking back at something I saw hours ago, and you're like, holy shit. It's just really, really good.
I actually think I just had this thought, you speaking about that now, but they use the Erdtree itself as a very clever, like, grounding point, if that makes sense. Like, when you appear in an area, just like you did now, if you're watching the footage, it's like the beginning of the DLC, I imagine, and you galloping through those fields that look pretty much identical to, like, the first key art we got for the game.
Yes.
You see the Erdtree, so you have a sense of place in this world that you've explored, but you're seeing it from a different angle, so you immediately know, okay, based on that, this area is there, this area is that, and it grounds you in that world, like, really, really well.
No, so the tree you're seeing, it's not the Erdtree, it's the...
What?
you're in a completely different realm. You're gonna laugh.
Toss everything I just said out of the window.
How big a fan are you of Yu-Gi-Oh?
I love Yu-Gi-Oh.
Because you're in the shadow realm. Let me tell you.
Oh my god.
Okay, not
Pegasus is
not in
put you into the
Yu-Gi-Oh
shadow realm.
but this place is called it's the land of shadow.
Okay.
And it's funny. I watched a Vati video yesterday, and you pointed out earlier where everyone's saying the Scooby-Doo or the Skadoo, or he's pronounced it the Shadow tree.
Okay.
And he has a whole explanation of it's this word which means shadow.
Wait, Shadow as in saying shadow like an idiot.
Yeah, shadow.
Okay,
not
cool.
Not Skadoo.
Cool.
It's shadow.
Okay, shadow.
I was he's got a whole explanation for how that came about. It's okay, Vati is the law on this. I guess it's the shadow tree from now on. So you're not in the lands between. You're in a completely different place, and that is a different tree.
Okay.
But to your point, though, that tree is such a good. I mean, just like the base game, that tree always being visible is almost like a North Star. It's a marker that lets you know, how close are you to it, how far are you from it, what angle you're looking at it. It gives the game a sense of weight. I mean, so and I keep comparing it to the base game because it's very similar, but you'll see that tree. It's one of the first things you see in Elden Ring, and the same in the Shadow of the Erdtree, and you slowly make your way towards it. It's you get close and close until you're there, and it just it's everything. The journey there is just it's so good. I was saying to Lenski yesterday, I was I need to stop playing this game. I've got other things I want to play, but Elden Ring is just so satisfying. You can play.
Yes, I'd like my husband back too.
No, but it's this thing of it's just satisfying to do combat, to level up. There's so many different builds you can do, and I think I don't know how From will top this. I mean, Elden Ring Game of the Year 2022. This DLC, fantastic, and now you wonder what do they do next. I mean, we've spoken about it. Is it we wish it's a Bloodborne 2, unlikely a Bloodborne 2 due to PlayStation rights and a whole whatever. Do they go back to Dark Souls? Do they go back to Sekiro? I don't know. Do they do an Elden Ring 2? I don't know. But
it's kind of nuts that they did an Armored Core between this.
Which I still need to play that.
It's just crazy,
casual Armored Core.
I don't know. I feel like I think the most obvious answer is an Elden Ring 2.
Yeah.
Because they've got this foundation here now. I think you were talking earlier this week in our Discord, how many people have been converted to fans of From's games purely off the back of Elden Ring.
Yeah.
And a lot of that comes down to the sort of the things you've been saying now, the sort of freedom that it affords you. It's not just about a world to explore and the difficulty in it, but it's this natural exploration of a massive world that you can take in at your own pace. And as much as I would like to go back to a more focus is the wrong word because I don't think Elden Ring is unfocused, to a more linear or smaller in scale game like a Bloodborne or a Dark Souls, I would love that. I crave that, especially because I think Elden Ring, for as good as it is, 100 hours is a lot of time invested nowadays. But I can see the argument that a lot of people got into Elden Ring because it wasn't that. Despite that, a lot of people we know have gone back now into the catalog of From games and are finding a lot of enjoyment in there because it's just they understand that formula. But I don't know. I would love I don't think they're going to do another Dark Souls because that series seems shut now for them. We've said numerous times I would love a new Bloodborne. That'd be great. But I definitely see them moving on to a similar thing to Elden Ring, if not a just full-on sequel from now.
It would be interesting because Dark Souls and Elden Ring are very similar in terms of tone. But I think, in a lot of ways actually. But I wouldn't be surprised if they did an open world Dark Souls. I think people would eat that up. It's maybe not Dark Souls 4, or they call it Dark Souls 4, whatever, but it's set in that world. They've got loose connections in terms of lore to the previous games, and it's got, iconic Dark Souls things, but it's an open world. I don't know.
That could work.
It'll be so interesting to see what they do next. And we're not going to see it for a while. I think given how big this expansion was. I can't imagine them releasing a new game for like at least another 3 years, let's say.
Yeah, I agree. Especially if it's meant to be on the scale of, an Elden Ring, which took them a long time. If you think of the gap between, what was their game before? Was it Sekiro or Dark Souls?
No, it was Sekiro. And then, yeah,
it was Sekiro. So that was like, 2018, 2019? And then Elden Ring was 2022. But they had already announced Elden Ring, way before then. So, yeah, I think it'll be a while. And, Miyazaki has expressed in a lot of interviews that he wants to, he still wants to lead these games and direct them, but he's also allowing new talent within the studio to kind of get to grips with that sort of thing, because he's not going to be around forever.
Yeah.
And you've seen that in the past. Dark Souls 2 wasn't directed by Miyazaki. Armored Core wasn't directed by Miyazaki. So it would be cool to see that sort of thing start coming through in new experiences and new games, and that could lead to entirely new surprises in the way that Elden Ring was a surprise, and I'm kind of excited for that as well.
Yeah. So
before Elden Ring, everyone was like, cool, a new Dark Souls, a new Bloodborne.
Yeah.
And when it was a brand new IP, I don't think anyone was like, lame. But it's like they have the ability to do something completely different and blow us away. So I'm curious to see if that's what they do as well again now.
Yeah. Do you have plans to play this expansion at some point?
Oh, absolutely, yeah. Like I'm looking for time to play it. I won't lie, it is a bit intimidating to try and dive back into that world after like 2 years of being away and kind of figure out what I was doing, what my build was, how to play the game fundamentally again.
Yeah.
But I think that's just a 1 or 2 hour problem, and then you're kind of like in it again.
It'll come back to you. And what's nice is that unlike previous From games where you'll finish the game, it's like, cool, new game plus, that's it. Yeah, you can just shred it, you can pick up your whatever character you last had, whether you finished the game or not, and just, granted, as long as you beat in Radahn and Moog, then you can go straight to the DLC. Did you, in your original Elden Ring playthrough, did you explore the Blood Palace?
I beat Moog,
Yeah, then you can just dive straight in.
I did quite a bit in my... I beat all the
main
named bosses, not the required ones only, but the big ones.
I read somewhere that this DLC has 80 bosses, and I was like...
80?
And I was like...
Holy shit.
I was like, really? But then it's like 80 bosses, and then there's like 10 to 12, proper main bosses.
So it's like some of those in the main game that you find in dungeons.
Yeah, it's like these side dungeons out in the open field, whatever. Sorry, in terms of 80, I was like, okay, I guess that makes sense. But I was just like, damn, I didn't fight 80
Yeah,
bosses.
That's a lot. I mean,
I thought like a fair few bosses, not 80 of them.
That's like all the Souls games combined, essentially, in terms of boss count, which is kind of nuts. Yeah.
What's wild about...
I'm excited to see like all the new bosses, because like I've seen... It's impossible not to see some of them on social media, so I'm curious to like fight them. They look really interesting. What's
wild is that to finish the DLC, you only have to fight 3 bosses.
Of course, of course.
I've ticked off. I explored the DLC thoroughly, and some really good boss fights. Would recommend.
I think I saw you put out a cool thread on like how many times you died to each boss. What was it? The last one that was 174 times. Wow, that must be one of the most. Like, if I think about how you played the other games, I can't recall you ever having that much trouble with a...
No, Millennia I died more too. I think Millennia was 200 and something, if I recall. I don't know the exact number. But it's interesting because there have been discussions like, is the final boss harder than Millennia? And looking at it now, I'm like, in terms of raw numbers, like, no, because I died less to this final boss. But definitely up there is a very, very, very challenging boss. Very good boss. I had a lot of fun.
But I think it's important to preface that number is high for you, but you also... You choose not to play with some of the...
Oh, yeah. No, it's...
The aids, like a mimic or something like that, which is totally fine, but like it shouldn't skew the sort of number that you posted there.
Oh, no. Yeah. I mean, you've got people who've he'll probably beat that boss like first time because of how they've built and whatever. And by all means, like, everyone plays these games differently, and I choose. I mean, it's funny because I'll die again and again. I'm like, damn this, but I won't back down. Like, I want to do it the way I've set out to do it.
And that's cool. It's cool that the game gives you the ability to do that or not if you choose not to. I distinctly remember when I fought Melania, I was at a point where there was so much discourse around her as being like this really grueling boss that a few like failures in, I was like, I really don't feel like banging my head against this for 200 attempts. I'm already at a point where I've played 80, 90 hours of Elden Ring, and I don't want this to like sour it. So, it was one of the few bosses I used the Mimic on, and that made it significantly easier, and that I'm like totally comfortable with that. So.
But it's fun. I mean, even my second playthrough, the footage you're seeing now, this character, I do it. It's completely different. I'm a spellcaster. I use mimics everywhere just because it's a different experience, and I still have just as much fun. It's a good time.
Just explain this build quickly, because you've got like a magic staff and you've got a sword, and that sounds like an interesting build I want to explore.
So no, it's just it's really just an intelligence build because it's a spellcaster. The sword I've got is from the base game. I can't remember what the hell it's called, but it's a katana that scales with intelligence and dexterity. And I think if you're a spellcaster who wants to use, I like using katanas and close range weapons, so it's a cool balance of the two. He has a great death if you watch it. I climbed into my horse and Tara just launched for it. I was like, whoa, what are you doing? It's just that weapon. It's a great katana you found in old in a cave in old DJ Khalid back in the base game.
Oh, love DJ Khalid.
DJ Khalid. And yeah, it's got a cool move where you sheath it and you pull it out and you do like a range attack. So
I've been seeing that. It's almost like the Rivers of Blood, Ash of War, where you did that. Yeah.
So it's a fun build. I mean, you just have to. It's really just an intelligence build with a bit of dex. And
so are you like melting bosses with that, or do you still have to very carefully?
I know
move around them
with my mimic, and that like I'll eat through bosses. I mean, this character I'm doing the typical thing where I've got that mixed physique that ignores mana costs for like 5-10 seconds, whatever, and then I've got the one comet spell which is just that huge laser beam. So
the Kamehameha.
Yeah, so if you line it up, you'll melt a boss so quickly. But if you miss it, it's which happens.
Might as well die.
No, it happens because you lock on and it takes a few seconds to charge up, and then the boss sidesteps. You're like, come on, man, just stand still.
I remember seeing a lot of videos from when the original game came out of people just like that exact spell, just melting bosses. Yeah, like 100%. Walk in on Moog, immediately kill him, sort of thing. So
I'm interested to fight other. There are some bosses though where I'm like that. In terms, like generally, a spellcaster makes bosses a lot simpler with the mimic because the mimic can tank and you can just happily, tap away from the side. There's some bosses though which I think directly counter this kind of build. There's a boss, for example, that is on horseback, and it's interesting because I think you can summon Torrent in this fight. So I presume the idea is that you fight this boss on Torrent. But this boss will like hit you off Torrent in one hit, and you're kind of forced to fight him close. And it's like, okay, you kind of can't get away. You can't get distance in this guy. So I don't know. I'm interested to see how this build fares. Against certain bosses like that.
I think that's always the thing. It's balance. Like there is no one boss that requires a specific build to beat. There has to be a certain level of like depth to your own build where you can change it situationally for a certain boss, but that's the beauty of these sorts of games, and what a good role-playing game is to give you the freedom to build like that and to have a fun experience either way with that.
It is a fantastic time. Like I think
was your main build a Blood Dex build? Again?
Blood Dex. Okay. So for the DLC I played.
Oh, you whiffed that command.
I mean, this is what I'm talking about. This dragon keeps moving, man. Yeah, for the main game, my main playthrough, it's typical max, well, like a very high dexterity, and then a lot of points into arcane because that's what scales the bleed.
Blood.
Yeah. So
and still rivers of blood, or did you find a different
I
weapon?
use rivers of blood a lot, but then there was another weapon from the base game which I had and I didn't really use. It's like Eleanor's pole arm or something. It's like
I know that one. Yeah.
So I never used that in the base game. I used it a lot here, and I did use 1 or 2 new weapons in the DLC.
Okay.
Yeah. I will. The last thing I'll say about the DLC, it's funny. I didn't really find new weapons that made me go like, wow, this weapon was made for me. Because it feels that a lot of the stuff I found was more for faith builds, which is just like something I didn't have.
Okay.
So if you're playing a faith character, you're going to find a lot of stuff. I don't know how useful it is, but at least you can use it. I picked up so many things. I was like, what a cool weapon. Oh, it scales with faith. I can't use it. So yeah.
Okay. No, it sounds, it's, again, yeah, I'm going to get to it eventually, hopefully before the end of the year.
Yeah.
But I am excited, and, you know, hearing you talk about it so positively, just, yeah, it has me even more excited, because I think we are very aligned when it comes to these sorts of games and these sorts of experiences. So I'm almost certain I'm going to have a good time with it.